Well, good morning. How are you all today? And happy Valentine's Day. Whenever I think of Valentine's Day, I think of wishing Kelly a happy Valentine's Day, and then I also think of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in Chicago, 1929. Now, why do I think of that? Well, an old girlfriend of mine's great uncle was the getaway driver in that. There's some lessons in the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, and there's a lesson in that also. How do I know that her great uncle was the getaway driver in that? Because they never caught the guys who did it, right? Well, it's one of those when you know, you know. And there are certain elements in society, different layers of society that know different things. Maybe I'll get back to that in just a second. I hope I do, because there's a good lesson in there. Also, I'll tell you something about Kennedy assassination. Um, so, the story of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre is that Al Capone and Bugs Moran, whose real name was George, were in a war over liquor in during Prohibition. That's where the mob really got its foundation for what it later became. And so Capone decided to take out Moran and his men and arranged a meeting. There was supposed to be a meeting to where a group was supposed to bring some stolen liquor. I think it was. I don't know. It's been a long time since I heard the story, but the details don't matter. The big stuff is what matters. So Moran and his men were supposed to meet another group at a warehouse in north side of Chicago, and to buy all this stolen hooch. Capone was out of town or someplace like that. Of course, he never, you never want to be where the thing goes down, right? Uh, that's why you have underlings. So Moran's men show up at the warehouse, and then Capone's guys show up. They were supposed to meet at a certain time. Moran himself was running late, and when he got walking up on, he saw a police car or two driving up, and so he turned around and left. And so he wasn't in there. But this other group pulled up. Two guys, either they were cops or dressed like cops, and some other men went into the to the warehouse, and under the auspices of "you're under arrest," telling Moran's men, "You're under arrest. Get up against the wall." And of course, they thought that they were cops, right? And they very well could have been. I mean, this is Chicago, right? So they get up against the wall, and Capone's guys take them out. Submachine guns and shotguns, I think it was, and leave him for dead. One guy lasted a while, but he died. And then, because the whole neighborhood, probably heard it, in order for them to make their escape, the guys dressed as cops walked the other guys who weren't dressed as cops, just wearing coats and ties and hats, probably back then. The other guys walked them out. The guys who weren't dressed as cops with their hands up, and the guys dressed as cops behind them that looked like they were taking them in, arresting them, and off they go. And they never found out who were the perpetrators. Now, here again, did some people find out? Again, it's Chicago 1929, very possibly that some people within the police knew, but nothing was ever done about it. And there's many, many lessons there. I could go down that trail for an hour. But they never, so how do I know? Well, this is what I was saying, that there are certain levels, and there are many different levels in life, and everybody has lived a different life experience. And the things that are limited by the life experience you've had. And they may be the same as some people, very different than others. I'm sure you've had that experience, right? You're talking about something that the other person knows nothing about, and to them it's like what? And preparedness. And somebody else is talking about something that you don't know anything about, and you go, "Wow, I never knew that." Well, in the mob world, uh, people know things, right? And this is how I know that her great uncle, this girl that I dated, was a driver in that massacre. Her family was connected. I dated her for a long time. She's a great person. Uh, I liked all of her brothers, and it was good. It was good. But it's also one. I'll throw this tidbit in too. They're up with, and there's a lesson coming here, and just enjoy the story until we get to the lesson. Um, they're coming out that Trump is letting out all the information about the JFK assassination, and now everybody's surprised. Of course, there's been all sorts of conspiracy theories around this, right? And they're not always the same. And now it's just coming out that, oh my, maybe there was more than one shooter. Oh my gosh, what a surprise, right? Certain people in the mob have always known who did that, and it wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald. And I'm not going to say who it was. I do know the name, but it wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald. And the reason that some people know it and some people don't, most people don't, is because people live in different segments of society, of the world. And these things tend not to cross lines, right? Now, if we go back to the lessons of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, there's a lot of lessons there. One of which is, and the big one, is that those people who want to work outside the law. Oh, and by the way, I'll interject this here. Many of you, I don't know if any of you on YouTube know, but the people on Patreon know that I'm about halfway done with a modern mafia book, a mob book. People have been after me for years to write one, and especially Kelly. And I've just kind of been resistant to it. But I finally got started. And I started this back during the Biden administration because the thing that really is the incubator for, underground stuff, whether it's anti-government stuff or whether it's organized crime, is the increasing oppression of the government on things that people want to do. This is why Prohibition gave the mob this real jumpstart. There was some organized crime before then, not just among Italians, but Irish. Irish really, are the ones that began it all. But it's really what gave them their stronghold. And as a government becomes more oppressive, there are more people that don't want to be oppressed, and they will find ways, and they will organize to find ways to live outside these oppressive laws and live life the way that they want to, or that they think that they should be able to, or whatever. And so even though I started, now that Trump's in, things have kind of changed, and I don't see that same atmosphere now. But I started it during the Biden administration, and the time will probably come again, just to be real honest. And so I'm still working on a book. I don't know when it'll be done. Like I say, I'm halfway done. We will see. And the book cover, I've put the cover of the book over on Patreon. I think I'll do it again in case I didn't. I thought that I had, or maybe I just sent it to a couple of people. I'm not sure. But I'll put it up there. And the book cover says it's a cross between The Godfather and The Equalizer. There are certain aspects, certain developments of societies that cause these things to occur, and in many cases they're simply necessary. I mean, there's a lot of bad to it. There's a lot of good to it too. I'll be real honest. So anyway, getting back to what I was saying, one of the big lessons here is that, in the last few years, there have been a lot of people, we've got to stand up against the government. We've got to do this and we got to do that. And what those people don't realize is that when you step outside the law, you're not just fighting the law. And remember that old song, "I fought the law and the law won." The law's got a long arm, got a long reach. You are also now in conflict with everybody else who has decided to step outside the law. Okay, Bugs Moran, Al Capone, both after the same thing. But when you step outside, whether it's I hear these guys. I'm certainly not a militia guy, but you hear militias are this or stepping out, or we got to rise up. Well, now you're out there, and I think a lot of people have this idea, and it's a very naive idea, that when you do that, everybody else is going to come together, and you're all going to feel the same way, and you're going to rise up, kind of like the American Revolution. That's not at all what usually happens. What happens is that your group is got one idea, with a leader or a committee or a council or something like that, and you want to do one thing. And this group over here, they share some of your ideas, but not all of them. They have a different personality about them, and you're going to come into conflict. And so now you're not, and then there's another group over there, and another group down, in the next county, and another group in the next state. All these different groups. There's not going to be the solidarity there that people think. There wasn't solidarity in organized crime until the commission was formed by Luciano Bonanno and some of those. But even at that, that didn't always work. And so you're going to be in conflict not just with the powers that be. You're going to be in conflict with everybody else who also didn't want to be under the heel of the powers that be. Okay? So, embarking on something like this is something to really be reflective about. Now, one of the things that got me thinking about this also was that I said yesterday, I think it was, that I've been reading this book by Michael Franzese. If you don't know who Michael Franzese is, look him up. Franzese. I had a guy, and I mentioned Franzese once before, and a guy came on, and he said, "Steve, it's pronounced Francesi." I said, "No, it's not. It's pronounced Franzese." How do I know? Because I know. And then he turned around and he came back later, and he did what was right. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I was watching the movie. What was it? What's the one? I don't watch mob movies for the most part because they're stupid. De Niro and the little short guy that's always acting tough guy. Anyway, it's a scene in a bar, the Shine Box scene. Was it Goodfellas? And don't get your ideas of the mob from these movies, guys. And they're going down the row of guys in the bar, and somebody says, and there's Michael Francesi. Okay, so this guy, having seen a movie, thought that he knew all about it. Guys, that's a danger. That is a danger, but how much of that do we deal with in life? Where somebody hears something, thinks they know it all right. It can be dangerous. Well, anyway, I was reading this book. Link Lambeth over on the Patreon channel loaned it to me. It's a good book, and it has a lot of lessons in it that I'll probably talk about more on the Patreon channel. Somebody said also yesterday, it says, "Why didn't you keep talking about? I'm sick of you mentioning the Patreon channel." Well, you know why? Because I put a lot of stuff over there that some of you might enjoy. It only costs $1 a month. You don't have to. But why shouldn't I mention it? It's something else that I have to offer, right? Don't want to come? Don't come. If you want to get a whole lot. Matter of fact, after I get off this, I'm going to tell you a story about me and a mobster's daughter. It's a funny story. And it could have got pretty sticky. But that's the kind of stuff, not just that kind of stuff, but I put a lot of stuff over there. If you like it, I want you to know that the link's down below. You can come join us. But anyway, there's a lot of lessons in this. And that is, remember that if you step outside the law, for the most part, unless you've made the right moves, and I cover a lot of this in this book that's coming out. Did I say I'll put the cover up over on Patreon? You just said Patreon again. Unless you've made a lot of the right moves and have the political backing, everything like this, if you step outside the law, you have no legal backing. You have to be your own law. And it takes a lot to be able to do that. You have to be ready, willing, and able. And I mean able. Okay? I'm not saying it's good or bad, just saying that it is. So that's the story of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. I have some other stories. Actually, I have more stories about this particular ex-girlfriend. No, I'm not going to talk about personal stuff. Although the one that I'm about to make for Patreon does have some personal stuff in it, but it's funny. I think you'll get a kick at it. So happy St. Patrick's, St. Patrick, that's coming up, and it's the Irish in me coming out. Happy St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Understand the world you're in. Understand that there are many worlds out there that you don't know anything about. And understand that the more worlds you know about, the better prepared you're going to be to deal with them. Okay? All right. You all have a great St. Valentine's Day. And remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, and understanding as many worlds as you can is the best way to prepare. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.